Hi, Ken.
Hello.
First of all, just start generally, what can you tell us about the player that's been acquired in this deal for Jesse?
He's a forward. He's playing in the Finnish league. Basically, obviously Don Waddell and I go back to 1998 when he was my assistant general manager. We went through a process, and he's an unrestricted free agent on June the 1st, so obviously we've got a limited time here to make a decision and sign him.
When it comes to Jesse, this was a long process with the Oilers. I know some of it started before you were even here, but you know, there seemed to be a repairing of the relationship about 2.5 years ago, and now ultimately he's moved out. How difficult was it to move him, find a place for him?
Well, I called Jesse in about 2 weeks ago and told him, and Marcus Latos, I mean, it was in, you know, I talked to Jesse, I talked to Marcus, it was over about a couple of days, that I would be interested in Jesse being part of our team going forward in next year, that we could not qualify him, you know, based upon a whole lot of things. I told him I was prepared to negotiate a 1 or a 2 year contract extension with him at a reduced salary, probably in the ones. And would they be interested in doing that? They talked and they came back, and Marcus Lato told me that they weren't opposed to the money, but they thought it was probably best to get a fresh start. So from that point in time, I knew that his days would be numbered here in Edmonton. And obviously what I'm trying to do is clear some cap space to try to do something between now and Friday. So, you know, certainly, you know, trying to move, you know, $3 million for a guy that, you know, has got 5 goals, and I think he played 6 minutes last night, was tough. But obviously, Carolina's got a lot of cap space, and you know, I've had chats with Don Waddell. You know, even when Jesse was over in Finland, my first year here as a manager. So there's been some interest from Carolina going way back, and you know, just it worked out probably good for Don Waddell in Carolina, and good for us and good for Jesse. I think, you know, I met with Jesse this morning. My take was he was a little mixed emotions, probably. I think he's coming out here shortly, probably a little, he's starting to be part of the group, and he liked the group, but I think he also understands that this is a new opportunity for him in the National Hockey League.
Ken, you know, we assume you've had Jesse's name in trade talks along the way here. It's just an assumption of ours. You clearly did not want to put him on waivers when you had a chance to do that, and then today you make a trade. How does it, you know, I guess in terms of the transaction, how does it get to the point where you're trading him for a prospect like this? Why, you know, why did it come down to this last minute thing? Was this your only option?
I guess so.
Okay. And the other question I would have for you, just going back to his draft day, this is a number 4 overall. He's a MVP at the World Junior. This city had huge high hopes for the player. It just didn't pan out. If you can take us back to that draft a little bit, is there a GM in the league that would not have selected Jesse at number 4 when he was still sitting there?
No, I mean, the NHL entry draft is it's a bit of a guessing game. If you look through the guide and record book every year at past drafts, you know, sometimes the player in the 5th round is better than lots of players in the 1st round. So absolutely everybody was going to. Jesse was going in the top 5 in the league in the draft that year, no matter who was picking. And I guess I would say that, you know, obviously when I got here, I don't know what transpired before I got here. Obviously, he went back to Finland. I had some teams call, talked to a few teams. Nobody offered up at that time. I'm going back 3 years. Anything that we would even consider as a deal. He obviously stayed in Finland for a year. I think it was good for his career. I think he got his swagger back, his confidence back. Excuse me. He played. I think he was top 5 in scoring in the Finnish league. And then obviously he's kind of. I think, shortly therein, Dave Tippett moved him up. He was on our top 6 there for a while with Connor for a couple of years. And, obviously his role, in the meantime now, obviously we get Evander Kane, we get Zach Hyman, the growth of the team, Yamamoto, and there's more competition. And, his role is diminished. But saying all that, I like I said, I tried to sign him to a deal to keep him here going forward because, he's an NHL player. But obviously in a cap world, cap numbers force you to make decisions. So absolutely, he was a top 5 pick. I don't care who was picking, top 3, top 4. Certainly, I guess, it's a disappointing day on one hand because, he's the 4th overall pick, and, you're hoping that pick is going to have some significant impact on your team. I'd like to think that Jesse's done everything that he could do to be the best player that he could do. Again, he went back to Finland and he's worked hard at his English, and I think he's gotten more physical. And I think that the time that I've been here and the coaching staff, I think we've tried to be as patient with him, as give him as much opportunity as we possibly could. But unfortunately, we're at this day to day, and we got to move forward.
I can. You mentioned that you had interest in bringing him back on a 1 or 2 year deal, obviously at a reduced cap hit, but at the same time, you've acknowledged that his ice time was kind of diminishing recently. So what was maybe the appeal of trying, at least entertaining the idea of bringing him back over the next couple of years?
Well, I'm looking for cheap players.
Anything is built? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's looking for cheap players.
Sure.
That's the appeal.
Okay. The other thing is, I wonder about, you mentioned this earlier in a previous answer, but ahead of Friday, what does getting rid of that, or Jesse and getting rid of that $3 million help now rather than waiting until Friday? And what does it allow you to do, I guess?
What was the which?
Help. How does getting rid of the money now and getting rid of the player help ahead of Friday? How does that maybe help and change your course of action?
Well, I mean, first off, when you're, there's buyers and sellers. You understand buyers and sellers. So, if you're a seller and you've got a player you want to move, and I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been a buyer and a seller. You want to accomplish 2 things when you're a seller. One, you want to move money. You've had a tough year. You want to get some money off your books, and 2, you want to get future assets. So, any deal, when we activated Yamamoto last week off of LTI, obviously we sent Holloway down, we sent Desharnais down, and we were running a team at 82.5 with 20 players. So ideally, we'd like to get to 21. We have good success here with playing 7 defensemen. So I got to get, so in talking to teams over the last week, obviously we're a team that I think I've said before, we're dollar in, we're dollar out. So by certainly moving Jesse today, now in my mind, it doesn't move $3 million, it moves 2.25, because if we're going to go from 20 players to 21, I need to have 750 to get the 21st player on the books. So it's not like you got $3 million. I'm trying to get from 20 players to 21 players. We don't want to go with 20 players the last 20 games. Obviously, we played 2 games earlier this week, or last week, where we were at under the roster. So it's giving us some cap space. We'll see now between now and Friday.
Ken, do you have, if you're going to trade, and we presume it's for a defenseman, does that team have to pick up some of that player's contract for you to make the money work?
I don't know.
Was that what you hope?
Well, it depends. I guess at the end of the day, I got to do a deal. So there's many ways to do a deal. Your way would be one of them.
Okay. And do you also need a top 6 right winger when Yamamoto is here and he's only got 5 goals himself? Do you need another player who can play in the top 6 if Yamamoto is struggling as much as Jesse is? Well, goals?
Yeah, I guess, Jim, I think in a cap world, I guess, yeah. But, excuse me, in a world with no cap, in a world with no cap, would you like to have this, and would you like to have this? That's not the reality that I live in. I live in the reality of 82.5, and when I put a number on the board, and I'm fortunate I'm good at math, and I can count to 82.5. So, and ideally, I'd like it to be 21 players. I'd like it to be 23, not 20, but I can live with 21. So, do we have things that we'd like to do? Yeah, priorities. I don't know they can hit every priority, but I think the reality is every team in the National Hockey League is dealing with the same challenges that we're dealing with. So it's a level playing field.
Not sure if you'll entertain this, but can you give us a sense of how many potential options you're exploring to upgrade your blue line, a number of potential players that you might be looking at? Is it
as many as I can?
How confident are you that you'll be able to upgrade, say, your top 4 on the blue line before the deadline on Friday right now?
I mean, there's a few players out there that we think would fit, so it's got to work. Again, it's not just the player; it's the assets, and then it's what we talked about, the cap. So, I mean, that's what today I'm hoping was step one. As again, we got to move money. So today, by moving Jesse, I'm hoping it's step one. I hope there's other steps to come. Not every seller wanted to take on, when I'm a buyer. So not every team that I was talking to had interest in picking up players. A contract. I mean, let's put it that way. So that affected, some of these talks. That hopefully today is step one. Now, I'm also going to say, today's not a surprise, or this week is not a surprise. I think I told everybody, when you go into LTI in the off season, and when you sit in LTI on opening day with the people that we put on LTI, with Clef and Smitty, we then made a decision to spend all the $82.5 million of cap space to try to be as best we could be over the course of the first 60 games of the year. It's not like we open the season and then halfway through somebody we got goes in LTI and now we got that money. We spent all that money. We spent all our cap space to try to be the best that we can be. So this week, being in this situation that we're in with LTI, I could have told you this in July. This isn't a surprise that it's dollar in, dollar out. I've understood, I've had a complete understanding of where this franchise is with the players on this team, with the age on this team. We're doing everything. I'm trying to do everything I can to maximize this team, the potential of this team. And it started out in the summertime, because if you go to $80 million on opening day, and you put Clefbaum on LTI, because it's 82.5 and Clef is 4.1. Our cap then becomes $80 million. It's not like you were saving that $2.5 million. The salary cap looks at you differently. You don't accrue space. So why spend $80 million and go into LTI and have $2.5 million of unused money? So we spend the 82.5, knowing that we're trying to maximize to make the team the best that we can in that locker room. Also, me fully knowing that coming into this trade deadline and this week, it would have an impact on what I can or can't do.
You're managing in the moment, but you're also managing for a few years down the road too. Are you open to the idea of moving something as valuable as a first-round pick this year for a pure rental? Are you open to that idea, or is that a non-starter for you?
I'm open to it.
Kenny, just wondering over here, Ken. Just wonder if you had an update on Holloway when he went down, he got hurt. What's his prognosis, and you expect him to
I
come up?
talked to him the day after. He said he went in the corner, he got hit, didn't think, went back to the bench. He's got a shoulder injury, and I'd say to you 4 to 6 weeks.
Ken, the player you got from Carolina, is it your feeling, obviously talking to your scouts, that he has some ability that he could actually be an NHL player, or you wouldn't have got him? He's playing well in Finland, but he hasn't been signed yet. So what's what are your scouts?
I mean, we talked to Matty yesterday. He's our Finnish scout that lives in Finland. He watches all those games. You know, I think, you know, today was more about getting $3 million of cap space. So, you know, we'll have Matty watch him. He lives in Finland. He can watch him play. Again, Tyler writes here. Tyler talked to Matty yesterday for a while. So, you know, Don had given me a list there of people, and ultimately we picked him.
And you mentioned you talked to Don for a while about Jesse. Is that because Sebastian Aho plays in Carolina and they played together in the World Junior? Is that why you first got involved with Don?
I don't know. I would assume it's so. I mean, I'm worried about the Oilers, so.
Ken, just so we're not assuming anything, is defense, upgrading the defense, your top priority by Friday?
I would say so, yes.
And do you have any update on Ryan Murray? Do you expect him to play again this?
Don't really know. You know, he surges for a little bit, looks, and then he falls off. So don't really. I can't tell you there's any significant progress.
Can you look at the deals and a lot of the trades we made so far? There's been a fair amount of teams that will retain salary on expiring contracts. Of course, Chicago's the only one who do it on a multi-year. In the conversations you've had with teams, you find most are willing to retain money for pending UFAs for the next 6 weeks?
Yes.
If you get into years 2 or 3, would any other teams
Not really
go longer?
No, I know Toronto did it, but not most don't.
How do you, when you look at your $2.8 million cap space and the potential the opposing teams retain money, like the Kulak deal last year, do you think you have room to acquire defenseman Hannah Ford?
We'll see. We'll see. It depends what, you know, Jason, like, it all depends what they add up to, right? I mean, it depends on if they each make $850, you can do it anytime. So it depends.
There's not many top.
It's all number related. You're asking, you know, it depends what they make.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at these guys.
Make.
Mentioned you had a few Ds. So you know what the top 4D they're not going to be cheap for the most part, right? Looking at their cap.
Yeah.
The most part. So, I guess I'll throw it if you're looking at
I guess up front, you know, obviously we moved Jesse today. So, you know, I'm hoping, he asked about Holloway. I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed that Holloway can come back sometime late in the season and get some games in the American League, play some games. The coaches know what he can do. And I know he played the one game and played 13 and a half minutes, and Keith Gretzky said, looking at Dylan, that game, it's one game, it's a one-game look. But looking at him that game compared to where he was a year ago, he was, you know, far more impactful. So obviously he's going like this. Now it's one game. He can judge, but so, you know, obviously I'm hoping that down the stretch, maybe get Holloway back. Obviously we've recalled Shorzy, and then we'll see here what goes on between now and Friday.
if you're looking for a forward, ideally would you want a right shot, whether for face-offs or even just a right winger?
Probably.
Kenny, assuming you could make the money work, which is obviously the big factor in all this, are you at a point yet where, say, Toronto or Tampa is, where multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks empty the cupboard? Are you there yet?
Let you know by Friday.
Thank you.
You guys good? Okay, thanks.